Now that we've had the opportunity to test with both Ashurbanipal and Hermann Prime in the open field, it's time to update my list of the very best open field pairings, whether you're bringing 5, 6, or 7 marches, or even in the early game, making your way to even just 3 marches. This video is going to give you the guidance you need to make the best marches possible, and we'll even do a tune-up on your talents, so let's get going. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And I had some strong opinions about how relevant Tommy would be and how relevant Ashurbanipal would be, but we actually went and did a bunch of testing on stream in order to arrive at the conclusions we're going to share with you today. And it's important to mention that I not only have experience using lots of these commanders, like Gorgo, for example, but also I have experience testing with these commanders when they're maxed out. So let's jump to Tier Maker so I can start to give you these combinations of marches. And by the way, use the timestamps in the description if there's anything you want to jump to, whether it's the 3-march configuration or the talent builds. All right, let's kick things off with a super powerful new march in the game, and that is going to, of course, include Hermann Prime. The primary commander here is going to be none other than Zhuge. This pairing is insane. It's big area of effect damage, big debuffs. It's so powerful. I've said for a long time that Zhuge is, I think, the strongest commander in the game right now, but Hermann Prime just really elevates the damage. Now, from here, we do need to mention that Skippy Prime and Liu Che is an absolutely wicked infantry combination. And as you're on your way to 3 marches, you'd really be remiss to not include your Skippy Prime with Liu Che combo. I think it is super, super powerful. And then last but not least, I really like Nevsky and Joan paired together for your cavalry. And if you were wondering, why are you starting with one of each troop type? That is because the power level is so pushed on commanders that are released today that you really want to be able to take advantage of each troop type. The safest thing you can do is build equipment, build armaments for each troop type, and due to the randomness of the armament system, it is very important to have a diversity of troop types that you can support, because you can't really guarantee you're going to get armaments that, all skew for the troop type you care about. So from here, I want to expand this to a 5-march configuration. And the 5-march configuration, you obviously have many options. I mean, you can go double cav, you can go double archer, you can go double infantry. And depending on what you have in your collection and what you like, that's the way you would skew things. But to kick things off, if we're going for the best of the best, I do really like Huo and William together. Now, the reason I go Nevsky, Joan, Huo, William is that I think you get more damage and utility this way. Having William in the Huo combination means you're going to get William to fire off his active skill sooner, because Huo has a lower rage requirement. That means your team's going to have defense and rage restoration faster. I like that. You could make an argument for swapping these around, and I would believe that that is also excellent. The justification for this would be that you get a little damage and rage buff from Joan sooner, and she is super powerful. I mean, her active skill is, I think, better than William's. It's easy to say that. So you theoretically are powering that up more. The downside here is that Huo's rage cycle is so fast that you may end up actually slowing down your skill cycles with Joan Prime, because every time you do an active skill, and she does extra active skill activations, you delay your rage cycle by a second. So there's always a second of downtime between active skills. That's kind of a complicated topic I've covered in depth in other places. I like this combination. I'm sticking to that. From here, I do feel like a lot of people will want to lean on their archers as their 5th combination. And there's a bunch of ways that you can run this. In fact, dude, Boudica Prime has so many amazing pairings. I doubt that most people will be running Boudica Ash, but that is a strong way to go. But also, Artemisia is amazing. But also, Isong is amazing. But also, you see where this is going, Nebu is amazing. But also, Honda is outstanding. But also, I guess you could use Henry, right? Like, there are so many ways that you can run archers here that will be good. It's actually shocking how many different ways you could run this archer march. Now, alternatively, if what you wanted to do was bring in another infantry march, instead of, for example, an archer march, I'll just include it in slot number 6. This is also a way you could jump up to 6 armies. And there are several really good candidates. You've got Gorgo, who's an outstanding candidate, and you've got Guan, and I wouldn't pair them together. So I think your best way to run another infantry march would be Skippy as a secondary to Guan, and then Gorgo with Liu Che. Of course, a lot of people do not have Gorgo, right? They only work on the one wheel commander every time that new commanders come into the game. And if you had Sargon to run Liu Che Sargon, that would also be an outstanding combination. So you've got Guan Skippy and Liu Che Sargon as your 2 infantry marches. Alternatively, I think the better infantry march is Gorgo with Liu Che. That is just really, really strong. And as I said for a very long time, Tariq ibn Ziyad would hit the bench. Not that he's particularly bad, but, you know, as I said, he was sort of the fourth best infantry commander, so he was going to be the first to remove from the lineup, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Now, when we expand to 7 marches, this is where I feel like you get to express your, preference, yet again, for if you like infantry, if you like cavalry, or if you like archers. Now, I am still a big believer in Trajan, and I'm not only a big believer, but I have experienced it. I have used it. My reports get so much better. Better than if I just drop another march in here. I think that Trajan is still the way to go. If you're doing that, then the way to do that is to use Trajan with Skippy. I think you then use Guan with Sargon, and you use Gorgo with Liu Che. And there is your 7-march murder ball if you go triple Enf. All right? I would not really do triple Enf without the Trajan. I feel like just don't do triple infantry at that point. And this is weird because, by the way, would I say you should invest in Trajan now? No, not until we see that there's another leadership commander that is a primary commander. Equipment is too risky. Unless you're like also a garrison player. Like, it's just, leadership's in a weird spot. So let's just forget about this weird leadership thing. And let's get back to things that more people can relate to and are interested in. If you're doing another cavalry march, you use XY and you use Justinian, and I think that's a great play. You also have Honda as a secondary that is viable. Even Mehmed as a secondary is super viable for your XY combination, all right? So if you're going to 7 marches with Trip Cav, this is the way I would run it. And lastly, we got to talk about Trip Archers, all right? If you're going to use 3 archer marches, what do you do? And there is an easy answer here, and there are many good answers, because archers have so many great commanders for the open field. One way you could run it is Henry with Esong. And look, you get a lot of stability with the Henry, and you get fat AoE damage with the Esong. What's not to like? I mean, honestly, it's following the same model as Boudica plus AoE damage. It's the same sort of a template, almost exactly. You've got a single target damage dealer that brings your tankiness and sustain. Boudica's got a lot of defense. And then you pair with some fat AoE damage. There it is, right? So you could do this Henry Esong. I made a video yesterday covering like all the different permutations and different ways you could run it. And they're all super compelling, I think, and exciting. Archers are just in a great spot. The one commander that unfortunately I've got in the candidate list that like you could use if you didn't have all these other archers would be Tommy. And if you're going to swap in a Tommy, you actually need to make a lot of moves to the lineup. And I'm not convinced that this is really the best you can do right now, quite frankly. But if you wanted to do this, you've freed up your Zhuge Liang at that point. And there's a lot of ways that you could run that, but I would say probably Nebu or Ash with Zhuge Liang would be a pretty good way to go. The downfall of Ashurbanipal is that you're not going to have march speed in your own territory. So defensively, you're like really slow. So maybe the Boudica Ash is probably a better way to run it. But I feel like you have so many good archers and so many viable archer options that probably Tommy is not what you're bringing in. All right. And you stick with what I was describing here. The Zhuge Liang primary with Henry or Hermann Prime secondary. God, I do that all the time. I mix up Hermann Prime and Henry. I don't know, man. I don't know what my problem is. And then we bring Henry and Esong down over here, all right? And this is how I would build your very best murder ball. And again, gosh, like if I'm really pinching the infantry, you've got kind of a choice over here of like, where does this Sargon go? And it's really weird that I'm inclined to not include Sargon. I almost feel like maybe, is this what I'm going to do with my infantry? I don't know. I run 3 infantry marches. I don't have this problem. I avoid this weird problem of do I use Sargon or not by having 3 infantry marches, and then I definitely use him. But yeah, I mean, Sargon and Skippy are also a really, really strong pair. A lot of ways to run this, but let's go look at some talents. Let's start with archer talents. If you're going to use archers, this is the build you use. This is a very uncontroversial, widely accepted best build for open field archers. There's not a lot to talk about here. You max out the skill tree, so you get faster active skills. You get extra skill damage. You generate a little extra rage. You get some extra attack, which enhances your skill damage. This works on your all of your archer skill damage combos. So you got Zhuge Liang, you've got Boudica Prime. They use that build. Alternatively, if you're using a support tree commander, so for example, I need to actually filter by archers here. If you're using Henry as a primary, then the build you're going to use is over here for field. 2 points in rejuvenate, 3 points in emergency protection, then go straight to whistling arrows, top of the archer tree. Easy build, very strong. You're covered for archers with these 2 talent builds. Next build you need to know is for your infantry. And for your infantry, it's really also still about the skill tree. The thing you're going to go for here is maxing feral nature. You go and you get hold the line, then strong of body, and a little bit of march speed from the flex talent points over here, the in-between talent points. Easy choices here. You used to kind of go for all these different infantry tree variations, but people are really settling into rage generation being completely OP, which is something I called out a very, very, very long time ago. Very uncontroversial build on the Guan Yu, even though there are a lot of ways that you can run your talents on your Guan Yu. For Gorgo, I don't even know if I have an open field build set up right now because I spend so much time garrisoning. I have like, honestly, Gorgo has so many different garrison variations. To show you this, I'm going to pull it up on another commander. Would you look at that? I actually saved a Gorgo field build in the past on my Charles Martel. If you're using Gorgo in the open field, I think you do go for the full infantry tree. Get the 2 points into march speed here in the defense tree, and then snap off loose formation, and you are going to get some insane trades using your Gorgo. Now, that said, you're far more likely to potentially be using Skippy Liu Che, and here is the build I'd be using for that. It's got a lot of march speed. I also make sure that I get emergency protection, hold the line. I like the march speed over here from fleet of foot and strong of body. This is your support infantry build for the open field, relevant on your Skippy Prime. Now from here we have cavalry, and great news, there's only one build for this, and it's also extremely uncontroversial. It's not debated. Here it is. You go in, you max to get feral nature, you get Emblazoned Shield to reduce the skill damage you take. And hey, look, we like to smash those archers, so Halberd is better than ever given the presence of a new archer commander to hit. And boom, Undying Fury for some extra rage. Again, you could play around with some talent points here, but this is generally considered to be pretty uncontroversial. I mean, if you wanted, right, like you could forget the normal attack, forget the attack over here, forget the rage, and you could go and get a little bit of march speed, which, like, hey, I mean, you got choices, is what I'm trying to say. A little bit of march speed, a point of health. All right, you got options. I do generally feel very strongly that Emblazoned Shield on the right side of the tree is better than going to the left side of the tree to get disarm. The attack reduction here just doesn't excite me all that much. In things that proc off of basic attacks get far more exciting now with a Liu Che combination, because he's got extra normal attacks. So now we're really like excited about this, but you don't have that with cavalry. So there you go. Whether you're using Huo, or you're using Nevsky as the primary, or you're using XY as the primary, this is the build you should be using. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. I update this list every time that new commanders come into the game. So subscribe so you don't miss the latest and greatest pairings and talents based off of my experience using the commanders and testing with the commanders. If you're looking for some of that dedicated guidance and testing around Hermann Prime and Ashur Betapal, cards will be in the end screen in just a second. I hope you'll check them out.